Hi, I so caught up with Robbie Williams there, I forgot to turn my microphone on. There we go. Anyway, welcome to Sunday here at Memorabilia. My name is Stuart, as you all know by now. If you don't, hello. We are very privileged to welcome our next guest. Please welcome to her throne. She played Queen Susan in Narnia, Anna Popplewell.
Hello.
They're very quiet. They are saying hello back, but you just can't hear them. So welcome to Birmingham. Thank you for joining us again today.
Thanks for having me.
No, pleasure. Now, the Narnia films have been absolutely monstrously successful. When you first found out about the role, that you got the role, how did you react?
Well, I'd actually been auditioning for about 18 months, so I hadn't really let myself hope that I was going to get it, because I knew otherwise I'd be so upset if I didn't. But I remember we found out from LA at around midnight our time.
Wow.
So I was just running up and down the stairs at my house, excitedly.
And did you know then, because I mean the films were shot in New Zealand, the first one, wasn't it? Did you know when did you find out, oh great, I'm going to be going to film in New Zealand?
I always knew it was going to shoot in New Zealand, actually. And that was so exciting because I'd never been to that part of the world before. And it's so beautiful, but also just full of extremely friendly people.
And for a long time, I mean, when you were filming, you filmed for about 6 months out there, was it?
Yeah, the first one was 6 months, and actually the second one was about the same.
And you live with yourself out there? Were you living with a group of people, or was it?
When I did the first one, I was 15, so I was living with, my mum didn't come out with me because I've got brothers and sisters, and I think she thought it probably wouldn't be fair to just pick up and leave them. So she came out for a month, my dad came out for a month, I had sort of friends come out, godparents, that kind of thing.
So you had a real good time there, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a great time.
Nice family holiday, bit of working in between. I mean, you're young, you're 15 at that point. How were you managing to combine not only the rigours of filming, that kind of a film, but also the schoolwork you had to get done?
Yeah, it was quite difficult, I suppose. But when you're younger than 18, you get sort of hours that you have to spend during school. So you sit in the middle of a battlefield with your textbook and your tutor for 3 hours a day. When we did the second film, I was actually 18, and so they didn't have to give me time to do those school hours, but I had to sit my A-levels. So that was quite interesting, trying to kind of fit everything in around it.
So 1 minute you're shooting things down with a bow, the next minute you're using a pen.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And then when, of course, the first film finished shooting, I mean, you were working with a group of people for a long time, very closely. What did it then feel like to come away from that?
Well, we all got on really well. It was sort of weird having spent every day with each other to then not see each other, I suppose. But we all keep in touch, and it was also nice to kind of go back to school and go back to all the friends that I'd missed at home.
And how did they react to finding out you are now a Queen of Narnia, effectively?
They were really good about it. I mean, I think they were sort of interested for 5 minutes, and then it was like, okay, what are you doing on Saturday night? They were very chilled.
And was that kind of different then for you, because you're going back to your normal life after doing this film, and now you've been... How's it to readjust then, to go back out and, all these people, the film was shown globally, made, millions and millions of pounds, 700 million I think it was at the last count. Did you get stopped by people on the street? Was it easy to just fade back into everyday life?
Yeah, I do get stopped by people in the street and recognised and stuff, but people are always really nice, and it's always really nice to hear that people have enjoyed the film. And it hasn't meant that I'm not able to go on the bus or not go on the tube, or I kind of think if you walk around as though you're somebody, then people will come up to you, but if you just kind of blend in, then you can get away with it.
And you mentioned your brothers and sisters there. Now, how did they react to seeing Big Sister in that kind of a massive role?
I don't know what my brother and sister have actually done bits of acting too, so they were quite cool about it. I think my brother was just concerned that while I was in New Zealand, he could come and visit and then go over to Australia to watch the Ashes. That was his main priority.
Oh, bless him. Using Big Sis for something.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, bless you. And you are a big sister as well in actual life as well, and in the films you're a big sister to them. Dan, what kind of... Did you use the experience you'd had of being a big sister to then move on to the role of Susan?
A bit. I mean, I think any actor sort of takes elements from their own life and tries to relate them to whatever they're doing on screen or stage. I would say that I have probably about the same amount of authority in the Pevensie family as I do at home, in the sense that my opinions are totally ignored.
Oh, bless you. And then one of the first scenes you shot when you're actually in Narnia was a snowball fight.
Yeah, that was one of the first, in the first film, that was one of the first things we did, was quite early on we did the kind of initial going into Narnia, and we hadn't really seen the set until we filmed it, I think, so that they could try and capture that initial wonderment. Georgie, who plays Lucy, was actually blindfolded and put into position on set, and then they took the blindfold off and rolled the cameras.
And who was the best snowball fighter?
Oh, Skander, without a doubt.
Did you not get him back afterwards in a different
Yeah, we
scene?
teamed up.
You teamed up, so it was all on Skander. That's the scene we didn't see. It's on the cutting room floor somewhere. There's pictures of Skander just been snowball pelted.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that they were for someone of your age, of 15 at the time, they're quite action-heavy films. There's a lot of running around and there's a lot of swimming, snowball fighting. How did you find that? Did you have to do any training to get up to a physical level, or?
Well, to be honest, I didn't have that much action stuff to do in the first film. So I just had to do a bit of archery training. But the second film, I did have to do quite a lot of horse riding, so I learnt that. And I was actually, because I knew I was going to be the only girl in the battle in the second film, I was determined that I wasn't going to be outdone by the boys. So I took extra horse riding lessons on the quiet, so that I could be the best.
Nice. And did it help you, the extra horse riding lessons?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I won that competition, but I tried.
Oh, bless. The thing was, you did have that big scene towards the end of the second film, didn't you, when you actually faced horses just running at you, 3 of them, and the Telmarines.
Yeah.
What was that like to film? That must have been extremely daunting.
It was pretty scary. I think we could only do a couple of takes on that for insurance reasons, but there was a sort of moment of me lying on the ground with riderless horses just coming past my head and sort of thinking, I really, really hope they don't step on me.
And then, of course, you're whisked up onto a horse by Ben Barnes.
Yeah, it's a bit ironic, that scene, isn't it? Susan kind of stands her ground, shoots down all the Telmarines, does this great stunt, and then the prince comes in and sort of doesn't really do that much.
Yeah.
Gets all the praise.
Did you kind of get on Ben about that? Come on, do some more work, will you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we wish we'd added a line in there being like, oh, you couldn't have turned up a bit earlier.
I'm just going to ad-lib for a minute, Andrew, is that all right? We're just going to have Ben just stand in the side ground, get his backside kicked, I come in, kick and save the day as usual.
I think that would have been a much better alternative.
That's fair enough. You're going to bring Warwick Davis in as a little gnome again, and he can do some damage as well with the ferns. But in terms of the film and shooting it, what was it like then for the changes? Because obviously the first film did really well, made a lot of money. Did you feel any difference in the pressure that when you came to film Prince Caspian?
Well, I think Prince Caspian was quite a different film because it wasn't really so much. The 4 of us, the sort of 4 Pevensies, were obviously still in it, but it was a much broader story. It's not just about our kind of journey. And it was sort of less pressure to film it in that sense, I suppose. But I guess the story of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is more popular, it's more widely known, so that was going to be easier in that sense. I don't know, the second film felt like more of an adventure film.
I definitely agree with that. And don't forget, if you have a question for Anna, stick your hand up and I will take the microphone around to you. I don't bite, honestly, neither does Anna. She's lovely. And in terms of the films then for you, you held, I believe it went to the O2, didn't it, the Prince Caspian, for the largest ever film premiere. Yeah,
there were a huge number of people there.
How did that feel for you? Because you've been acted on the big screen, you've done all of that, and then you have to stand in front of all these people.
It's really nerve-wracking. I always feel a bit more nervous speaking as myself than I do as a character. I don't really have any problem with acting or standing on stage, but I feel a bit more nervous when I'm just being me.
Oh. And did you, because of course you had your fun on the first film, you had fun on the second film, and then when you think back, what's the thing that you think the most you enjoyed out of it?
I think the best thing was really the people, that I made such good friends. The director, Andrew Adamson, is just such a lovely guy. All of the cast I'm still in touch with. Skander lives about 2 roads away from me at home. And of all the kind of mad experiences that I had making it, the people are the sort of lasting thing that have come out of it.
And then when you finished the films, you finished both of them, they gave you did you get anything to take away? Was there any particular prop that you wanted that you didn't get, or? On
the night of the premiere of the first film, actually, we were given our weapons. So I've got this kind of bow and arrow hanging on the wall at home, in case I might need to use it sometime. Who knows?
Particularly dangerous, boyfriend comes around. You don't want to see him anymore to get your bow out.
Yeah, I think that would
aim.
probably be quite an original way of dumping someone,
It
wouldn't
pretty
it?
would be, yeah. Get out the boat from the Queen. I'm the Queen of Narnia. You're no longer needed. Get out. So in terms for you, though, I mean, the effect on your personal life, you went back to school after you did Prince Caspian, didn't you?
Yeah, I went back to school. Actually, I went back to school between The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian, and then as soon as we finished shooting Prince Caspian, I started university.
Now, a lot of young actresses and actors would not. They just continue after such a big film like Narnia. What made you actually decide to think, right, I'm going to just go back to and do my studying?
I didn't really want to miss out on that experience of meeting loads of people, and I really wanted to continue my education, and I think it's sort of nice to have something to rely on, like a degree.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a good point. Don't forget, any questions, feel free. But you have a question from this gentleman here?
Finished with the Chronicles of Narnia now, haven't you, I think?
I have, yeah. I'm not actually...
What's the next film project?
I haven't been shooting while I've been at university, actually, because although I could kind of combine it with school...
Got nothing, no offers yet? No offers?
Sorry?
You got no offers of another project yet? Or?
Well, I've had offers, but I haven't been able to actually take on any work while I've been at uni.
Just realised in front of the camera there. So, on the film, when you think the first one, The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, there was apparently a swearing jar set up.
Yeah, there was. They called it the potty mouth bucket. I think it was Georgie who was sort of the ringleader on that. And she kind of donated all the money to charity at the end.
Who would you say was the worst offender, and how much did you end up donating?
I was pretty good. Skander was quite naughty, again. But it was partly for crew and people like that who weren't used to having kids around all the time.
Oh, gentleman again.
Is it right they're only doing one more film in the series?
They have made the third one, but I don't know what their plans are with the rest of the series. I imagine it depends on how many people like it.
And for the because it was one of your first major film roles, wasn't it? The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. You'd done things like Mansfield Park before and other bits and bobs. What was it like with the CGI that you had to work with, a lot of green screen in the first one? How did you adapt to that? Because you're not really running after beavers.
Yeah, it's quite weird when you don't see some of the things that are in the film until you actually watch it put together. We used to have, for things like Aslan or the beavers, we would have little kind of bits of green tape on sticks, or we would have just markers to look at. And we only really saw the beavers in the final cut.
So you ended up following a little running tennis ball.
Yeah, tennis balls, people in green lycra suits, a variety of eyelines.
And then of all the people you met, because there were some fantastic stars on there, on the films, what was the one you were most excited about meeting?
I don't know. I was really excited about meeting Tilda Swinton, actually, because she's such a brilliant actress, and she's she's got this kind of majestic aura about her.
And on the set now, the character of Susan is quite a strong female character, very strong female role model, and a positive one. How did it feel then to see the reaction you get when you go out and you come to places like Memorabilia that Susan gets? It's
really nice to actually come and... I've been saying hello to people yesterday and this morning, because when you go to kind of big interviews or big events, you don't usually actually get to meet people, and there's never enough time on the red carpet to say hello to people. So it's actually nice to be able to have conversations with people who've enjoyed the film. And for you, the costumes on Narnia were amazing. How difficult were they to do things like archery, horse riding in these fantastic flowing gowns and everything? Yeah, the first film wasn't so bad for that, but the second one, where I had this kind of leather bodice thing, was not particularly flexible, jumping on and off a horse in. And it got quite hot in the summer. But however hot you were, you just look over and there'd be a minotaur sweating away, and you think, no, I'm fine, actually, I'm okay. And that's another thing. I mean, you've got lots of these minotaurs, you've got fawns walking around. How surreal a day of work is that? It is pretty odd, especially when we used to have massive speakers set up on location so we could play music in between takes. So you just have this crowd of dancing fawns, minotaurs, people in costume, all kind of jumping about to the Beatles in the middle of a field in New Zealand. It was quite surreal. It's a good day of work. Yeah, well, pretty unusual. It's not your usual office job. Yeah, certainly beats working at, say, an Asda or McDonald's, doesn't it? Dancing around in field with fawns and beetles.
music. But for you then, how long was an average filming day?
Well, it depends. I mean, the thing is, I always kind of had to do kind of work in the evenings for school. So you might do like a 12-hour day on set and then, 3 hours of work in the evening or something like that. So it could get quite long, but it's always really good fun.
But did they give you day off? And what did you tend to do when they gave you days off?
We did have days off. When we shot most of the second film in the Czech Republic, and we spent quite a lot of time in Prague. So we used to go to the cinema and kind of just have meals and chill out together. When we were in New Zealand, the boys did some bungee jumping, which I didn't quite feel I could muster the strength for.
So we won't be seeing you doing any high wire work then in the future?
I don't think so.
You've obviously read the books and things like that. If there was another book that you've read that you could make into a film now, what would it be and why?
Any book.
Any book.
I think there's a book called Alice in Exile by Piers Paul Reed, which is just a really, really fun read, and it's about a woman in Russia.
Any more details on that other than about a woman in Russia?
I think, it's just a really good, pacey story. I think it's always really nice to have kind of good stories at the hearts of films.
That's fair enough. And if you'd like to ask a question of Anna, please feel free. As I said, we've had a couple already. I don't mind. I can talk for Britain. But now, as I said, you worked with a gentleman who we had here yesterday, Warwick Davis. Now, when you're working with people that have been in Narnia before, did they come on set and give you any advice or anything like that?
Sorry, can you say that?
Did Warwick give you any kind of advice or anything like that? Did you get all the other cast members? Did they say to come up and try to offer you advice or?
Not really, I suppose. I mean, it was a very giving atmosphere in that some people had different habits. Like Sergio, who played King Miraz in the second film, used to, before he did a kind of take, used to amp himself up by shouting. And the boys took to doing that on the battlefield. It's kind of like kind of psyching themselves up. And so you do just pick up things from other actors, but I don't think that we were ever kind of having deep and meaningful conversations saying, so how do you do this, how do you do that?
And what kind of things did you do to psych yourself up then for your scenes?
I mean, it was always a bit strange actually, because you think you're ready to do something and then there's a 20-minute break and you never quite know when you're going to be off and on. Lots of us kind of used our iPods and stuff like that if we had a kind of big action scene. But mostly it was just sort of turn up and do your stuff. And
you got, as we've already established, you got on well with the other rest of the members of the Pevensie group. What was it like, though, for you when you realised, okay, this is it, we're not doing any more Narnia films? Do you still think back and think, right, if I could rewrite the books, then I'd go back, or?
Yeah, I think it was quite weird at the end of the second film for Will and me, knowing that we weren't going to be in the third one, and that everyone was going to go off and have another adventure without us. But at the same time, I've had such a good time doing them, but I felt kind of ready to go to uni and do something different and do new projects in the future.
Well, that brings us to the end of our talk then. So I'd like to thank and give a massive round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Anna Popplewell.
Thank you.
And don't forget, Anna will be signing and having photos with at her table. And you can find that